Gemara tonight. We are, I feel so choshev standing here. We are at the bottom of Chav Gimel base. Ad Kadun. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines on the bottom. Ad Kadun. V'ochlin shenikmu ba'avir kli cheres. We're just starting.
This is very impressive.
Yeah, I know. It's impressive. I just said I feel so choshev standing here. We are gathered here today. Okay. I could do mostly shiur v'avir kli cheres. Till now, I was speaking about a food which came tummy with the through the airspace of kli cheres, shenitmar b'sheretz, which came tummy with the sheretz. Ochlin atzum shimu b'sheretz minayin. How do we know the food itself, which became tummy with the sheretz? How do we know that that works? Now, at first, when I saw this Gemara, it staggered me. I have to speak with some eloquence tonight. First, when I saw this Gemara, it staggered me because I did not understand what the Havamina might be. Because it sounds here that oicha which touches the sheretz is worse than oicha which did not touch. I'm sorry. There's a Havamina that oicha which became tamei through the airspace of kli cheres is more metame than oicha which actually touched the sheretz. How could that be? In the kli cheres, it did come into direct contact with the sheretz. The sheretz was metame the airspace, and the airspace is metame the oichel, and that's what the pasuk itself is talking about. Yet the Gemara says perhaps that food can turn around and be metame, but not food which came into direct contact with the sheretz. Makes no sense, right? So I was thinking like this. I think my Havamina is pretty good. My understanding of this is correct. The Havamina is, I think, as follows: when the sheretz is metame the airspace of the food in its totality is enveloped in tumah. All of it is tamei, not just enveloped, but it is now fully immersed, so to speak. It's like in a mikveh of tumah, if you could imagine that way, right? Imagine that. But when a sheretz touches a piece of food, it only touches one side of the food, and one actually particle of the food. How do we know that the other side of the food is not, eons of particles away, but rather the same tumah pervades the entire piece and goes out, so to speak, on the other side? I think that's really what the Gemara needs to ask over here. Okay? Which I think makes sense. I mean, really it's a fundamental question which should be asked somewhere in Shas, and perhaps this is the question which the Gemara is asking here. So it says in Vidinu. The Gemara actually learns out from a kind of a convoluted logic. Vidinu. Umayim ha'kelim she'enim metame avir kli cheres. Kelim are not metame from avir kli cheres. The halacha is if you put a keli inside the airspace of kli cheres with a dead sheretz, nothing happens to the kli. The kli remains tar. This is a story which we had way back when in the Yerushalmi Sotah. B'mino machriv, eno machriv. It's a whole complex thing there. When you put into a keli kli cheres, another keli of any substance, and you put foodstuff inside the interior keli, it doesn't become tummy, because a kli is not metame ma'avir kli cheres, only ochlin, okay, of any sort. So
is that keli covered?
No, even if it's open, right? Ma'im hakem she'em metame ma'avir kli cheres shenitma b'sheretz. Harei metamim kisheretz. Nevertheless, if a dead sheretz falls on them, the kisheretz is lav dafka. They don't become like a sheretz, but they take two of a sheretz. It says in pasuk, if a sheretz falls, a dead sheretz falls on a keli, that keli is metame, right? So metame oichlin. Ochlin atzushim b'sheretz, so food which does become tamei in avir kli cheres, certainly if a sheretz falls in that, eino din she'itamu kisheretz l'tamei ochlin. It's not kavachomer, they're metame like sheretz, or tamei other food. So very interesting kavachomer. Mara says, if a keli, we know that keli, this makabel tumah, dead sheretz falls in it. That's explicit psukim, the Mephoshim bring it down here, right? So if a keli is metame when it comes to contact with sheretz, to in turn be metame some other food. So kosh and a keli does not become tamei in avir kli cheres. Koshkein food which comes down to their dead sheretz must then become tamei to metame other food, because it's more chomer in that when it's placed inside kli cheres, ochel becomes tamei. So that's the kava chomer. Ocha, which is more chomer in kli cheres, that it's metame from the airspace as opposed to a keli. If a keli can become tamei by sheretz l'tamei acherem, certainly ocha can become tamei b'sheretz l'tamei acherem. And again, the sheretz only touches one part of the keli, but the entire keli becomes tamei. So too, if the sheretz touches even one part of the food, all the food becomes tamei. Okay? So it says more Akidun Rabbi Akiva. Now that would make sense to Rabbi Akiva, who holds as a shlishi by chulin. Okay, because he dashes yitma. However, Rabbi Shmuel, but according to Rabbi Shmuel, actually this Akidun is really a new sugya. We're asking how we know Revi, how are we going to figure out Revi by Kodesh according to Rabbi Shmuel? Like Rabbi Akiva, we know they're shlishi by chulin, right? And shlishi by chulin is tamei, so it must be it can make a Revi by Kodesh, right? That's logic. But what about according to Rabbi Shmuel holds it by chulin? It stops by sheni. So how do you know that there's such a concept as Revi by Kodesh, right? So Tani Rabbi Shmuel, I'll tell you. Rabbi Shmuel says v'abasar sheiga b'chol tamei. Flesh which doesn't say anything tamei zeh rishon, right? Shenaga b'chol tamei because it touched on something tamei. Lo yechel, it's not eaten. Rabbos is sheni. Hashlishi b'nan, how we know shlishi? V'dinu. Uma im tful yom she'eno paisel b'chulin. A tful yom doesn't pasul chulin. How reo paisel b'truma does pasul truma. When a tful yom touches chulin, nothing happens to it. Touches truma, the truma becomes pasul. Sheni shu pasul b'chulin. A sheni which is puzzle by chulin, right? If a sheni touches chulin, if a sheni touches, well, not to be touches chulin, but a sheni who's puzzled by chulin, there is such a concept as sheni by chulin. It's not that a sheni touches something. A sheni touches something by chulin, we're going to Rabbi Shmuel, it doesn't do anything. But a sheni by chulin is puzzled, right? There's such a concept. Because we know, according to Shmuel, you have Rishon, and then you have Sheni, and the buck stops at Sheni, right? So if it's full Yom, who's not considered to be anything vis-a-vis Chulin, he can eat Chulin, he can touch Chulin, then nothing happens to the Chulin. Nevertheless, what he does to Truma, makes it puzzle, makes a Shlishi, so Sheni, which is puzzle by Chulin, which is ready puzzle. Eno did Shif so Truma, Chukav, Chomer should make Truma puzzle. And now, if that's the case, so we understand that a Sheni by Chulin can make Shlishi by Truma. From Tvul Yom. Tvul Yom has no restrictions by Chulin, nevertheless he makes Shlishi by Truma. Kal Koshke Sheni, which is a real thing by Chulin, that will create a Shlishi by Truma. Revi B'Kodesh B'Nayin. How do we know gets Revi B'Kodesh? So it says Mar V'Dinu. It's a logic. Uma im Mechusar Kippurim She'ena Paisel B'Truma. Mechusar Kippurim doesn't pass with Truma. He can eat Truma. Mechusar Kippurim, so he's waiting for his credit for the next day, can eat Truma. Harei Paisel B'Kodesh, but he passes Kodesh. Right, you can't eat Kodesh till the next day. So he's a guy who must be a Shlishi, and he makes Revi, right? Shlishi shu pasul b'truma, Shlishi by truma, which is pasul. Ein adin shif sav Kodesh, must make Revi by Kodesh. So actually, from Mechusar Kippurim, Mechusar Kippurim who has no restrictions by truma, he does make Kodesh pasul, that must be considered Revi. So to a Shlishi, which is restricted by truma, there is such kind of shlishi by truma, it certainly makes a Revi b'kodesh. So it says Gemara, halamanu l'rishon v'sheni mina kosim. So it says Gemara, look, you want l'rishon v'sheni from the pasuk, u'shlishi medin shlishi v'kam from a din from Tvul Yom, or v'imi kav v'chomer, which is really the same thing, din and kav v'chomer from Mechusar Kippurim. Dani lo din mina din. So learning a kav v'chomer at top of a kav v'chomer. Now I don't know what's bothering the Gemara so much. Big deal. I understand. So what? So let it be a kav chomer, a kav chomer. Whoop-de-doo. But nevertheless, I think the Gemara felt that this is a weak kind of kav chomer. And the truth is, if I were asking the question, not the Gemara, and perhaps the Gemara means to ask, I would have asked that a Tvul Yom is not an issue necessarily of Tumah. Mechusar Kippurim is not an issue of Tumah. It's really a psul. It's a different parameter. It's not the same ballpark. Okay, so I don't know if you can make a kav chomer for that. Maybe that's really what the Yerushalmi is trying to ask. There's not a proper way to learn a kav chomer. Tvul Yom can't eat truma, but it's not a tumah. A Mechusar Kippurim can't eat kosher, but it's not a tumah. How are you going to extrapolate from that to the concept of tumah and tara, that there's a shlishi betuma, there's a v betuma? Maybe that's what's bothering Yerushalmi. Anyway, the bottom line says Yerushalmi, we're playing a game with you the whole time.
Well, it's an intrinsic tumah. It's not the tumah that will be transferred to something else, but it's an intrinsic tumah to himself, this Tvul Yom.
Right, so that, but you want to say that since he parcels the truma, so kol koshke and sheni betru, sheni blutuma apostles. But for precise, because Tvul Yom is a different plane, so how can you learn one or the other? Anyway, the Yerushalmi basically comes out and says, we fooled you the whole time, ha ha, it was just all a joke. Shi'akol meshubad la'alacha, it's really all halacha Moshe Sinai. It's all subordinate to halacha, which we really, I think we all suspected the whole time. There's all halacha Moshe Sinai. She had apostle shlishi apostle b'truma v'arvi b'kodesh. Kav chomer taka doesn't work out properly, but it's halacha Moshe Sinai, and age which halacha Moshe Sinai doesn't need to be based on age psukim or kav chomers. Okay, that's the end of Tumatara. Baruch Hashem.
According to both Moshe and Korban, we still don't teach the kav chomer. It's just
The some chachamim halacha kav chomer. So it's machta.
yeah, right.
Yeah, okay. We don't ditch it, but it's not. It's we understand its inherent weakness, and we don't rely that we don't. It's not the primary halacha. It's like an asmachta.
Actually, now you pointed out that Moshe actually phrases it slightly differently.
Yeah.
Because he just says, "Basically, should be revealed of made him under mahalacha klomer midin kal v'chomer lo dorish le yikra mikayim."
Probably is a typo there. Klomer lo dorish le mikra. I'm not sure, but I think it's a typo there. Okay. In any event, maybe you're right. Maybe Moshe learning differently, but I'm certainly not going to take the time to figure it out. Now, I'm on a roll. Next Mishnah. Right. We'll roll away from Tumatara. Okay. This is a cute Mishnah. We're talking about stuff which is Darshan and say they realized when Azari became Nasi. Okay, so Darshan the following. Total shifting gears here. We're talking about the Arei HaLevim. The Arei Levim, the cities granted Levim when they entered Eretz Yisrael. Okay? So these cities, it says, measure outside the city, as pas Kedma, measure each side, Alpayim Ba'ama. It says, give 2,000 amos on each side. Pas Kedma is the east side, but all other sides as well. Another pasuk says, Mikia Ir v'chutza elef amos saviv. The other pasuk says it's only 1,000 amos. So it's a contradiction. How do we reconcile the contradiction? So it says, if Shalomar elef amos, you can't say 1,000 amos. It says 2,000 amos. If Shalomar alpayim amos, you can't say 2,000 amos. Shekvar nemar elef amos, because it's 1,000. V'loma nemar elef, v'loma nemar alpayim. Well, I say 1,000 and 2,000. Two versions here. Tanakama here, who's Rabbi Akiva, says, elef amos migrosh, 1,000 amos of empty fields. V'alpayim amos tchum Shabbos, and 2,000, the second 1,000 amos, in order to tell us about tchum Shabbos. Okay? Right, blessed of Moshe Rabbi Yisrael Omer, elef amos mikrosh, 1,000 inner amos were empty fields. V'alpayim, or empty yards. V'alpayim Sotah Sukrami, 2,000 were fields and vineyards. You know, the 1,000 amos close to the city was left open. I forget what it's explained, but I think one of Makkah's, for security, because the Goel Adam. The Goel Adam, because remember, all the Arei Levim sold also as Arei Miklot. So if you left a lot of places for a Goel Adam to hide near the city, could lead to all sorts of, ambushes and stuff like that. So therefore they left it open. Okay? Rabbi Eliezer ben Rosh Hashanah Omer, Alpayim amos tchum Arei Levim. 2,000 amos was the boundary around each city of Levim. Tzeimem elef amos mikrash, 1,000 amos is empty. Nimtza revia mikrash. This is a quarter is empty yards. Vashar Sotah Sukrami, the rest is Sotah Sukrami. What do you mean by that? So there's more two interpretations. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yitzchak B'Shem Rav said Revia, and I'm going to learn the Shari Torah because he has a really nice pshat here. He says Revia me alachson. It's once upon a time where it said Mem Aleph Lamed with a slash, and somebody interpreted as Aleph, but it's not me alachson. And here I drew myself a little picture here. If you see over here, if this is this is the city, and this is the inner 1,000 amos mikrash, and the outer 1,000 amos is Sotah Sukrami. So each corner is a quarter migrash and 3/4 Sotah Sukrami. You see that? So it's Revia me'alachson. Each corner is 1/4 migrash and 3/4 Sotah Sukrami. Okay, that's his interpretation, which is nice. The next interpretation is Amar Yitzchak Va'afilu Tamar, even say Revia Mikol Tzad review. Then you take the entire area, it's a quarter. Manda Marba Arba, it shouldn't be gravid, it should be, it says Sharater, so it should be Garmited. Somebody who makes 4 amos square, boy sheets side needs 16. Meaning like this. This is first the case it is like this. You have a square by 4 by 4 amos, right? That's 16 amos square. Now you want to make a square equivalent around that, right? Just like 1,000, 2,000. So that's put 2 amos on each side, right? You understand why? Because the square itself is really from the middle point. There's 2 amos on each side, the inner square, right? Because it's a 4 by 4 square with an inner point, right? So it's 2 amos from the middle point equidistant to each side, right? Now you want to make a similar square around it, so it's two additional amos on each side. So the outer square is 8 by 8. You following so far? The inner square is 4 by 4. The outer square is 8 by 8. 4 by 4 is 16 square amos. 8 by 8, 64. 16 is a quarter of 64. Okay? So he says, if the city is very small, without taking into account the size of the city, assuming it's very small, so then the migrash will be a quarter of the total square. Right? Because the migrash is going to be like this inner square. So the same thing, you make 1,000 by 1,000, and you make the outer 2,000 by 2,000, they'll be the same proportion. The inner sort of 1,000 by 1,000, which is how many thousands altogether? 1 million? No.
It's square? It is a million.
It's a million, right? It's a million. It's going to be a quarter of 4 million. Because the outer one's going to be 4 million, right? You see that? 1,000, 1,000 million, 2,000, 2,000 is 4 million. So the migrash is a quarter of the total, not taking into account the area of the city in the middle. Okay, so it's saying it's either a quarter. Two versions of what a quarter means. It's either a quarter of a corner or a quarter of the totality if you leave out the city, which of course changes things somewhat. Okay? A little bit of geometry there anymore. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Mona Mishar Kod Levain. Rabbi Mona demonstrated this with bricks. Everybody took different ways of demonstrating this. And you have a picture of the Pnei Moshe there on the bottom. How he demonstrated with bricks. That you take one brick of 50 by 50 and you put 4 bricks there. So then you have, altogether, 100 by 100 is actually 4 times 50 by 50. That's what I'm saying. 2,000 by 2,000 is actually 4 times 1,000 by 1,000. Is that clear? Yeah? Not quite?
Do the math again.
1,000 by 1,000 is actually a quarter of 2,000 by 2,000. You would think it's only half, but it's really a quarter. So he demonstrated that with bricks. He showed how 50 by 50 brick, I mean, he didn't take a brick which is actually 50 by 50, but he took a brick and demonstrated how, 50 by 50 is not half of 100 by 100, but a quarter of 100 by 100. Okay, he demonstrated with taking those bricks and putting them next to each other. Okay? He demonstrated with the belts. Not sure exactly. I guess he made strips, not real belts of leather, but like with strings. And Rabbi Yoshi Bashar about the Sikrin. Sikrin has 7 interpretations, but I like interpretation says with ink. Sikria is a type of ink. He took ink and paper and demonstrated how it works. Now, as the Chamisha is base saw. 50 by 50 is the base saw. That's the size. That's the size of the courtyard of the Mishkan. Mea is base arba, so it's 4 times that, right? It's not as the picture in the Pnei Moshe bottom says. Now we have a Gavaldiga story. I didn't look up the Bavli on today's Gemara, but I'm positive it's not the Bavli. It's a great story. Kihata Reish Galusa, the certain exarch, Itla Lavi, the Itlaka Lavi, that was placed upon him a tax that he has to fill up Chad Traklin, he has to fill up the one hall, Arboin. He has to take a hall 40 by 40 amos, a huge hall, and the Yemoinin Chiti and fill with grain and give it to the king. That was the tax placed upon him. Why the king placed such a tax? Kasha and Maisa. He has to take a hall of 40 by 40 and fill it up with grain. Okay? Asked the guy Rav Huna, so the Reish Galusa came to Rav Huna and asked, what should I do? That's a story. It said, Paisun. Look, to get it out altogether, you can't do. But suggest them, appease them, the Yasmi Noch Esrina Asrin Kudun, that they take 20 by 20 from you today, Vesrina Asrin Basar's mine. Now they'll take 20 by 20 from you another day. Va'at Miskar Palga, and you're going to save half of the volume. You see that? based on the principle of the words, the goyim, they're dumb. What are they going to understand? You tell them, I can't give you 40 by 40 today, so I'll give you 20 by 20 today, and 20 by 20 another day. But we now already know from the sugya before that 20 by 20 is not half of 40 by 40, but rather a quarter. But the dumb goyim, they're not going to know the difference. So you tell them 20 by 20 today, 20 by 20 another day, and that way will make a quarter. This is all the story. Okay? Seems like it worked. Right, Rabbi B'Shem Rabbi Yehuda, Goya Shekab. Right? Rabbi B'Shem Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Zir Shem Rabbi Ukva said, Ein Mekadrin El B'Chevel Shel Chamishi Mamo. Now, the Shaitai still changed the gears to 5 amos. But, Lamaisa, without getting into that detail, if you remember from Erevin, or from, I don't remember if it's Erevin or Shabbos, I didn't say Erevin. Yeah, the way we measure the 2,000 amos, we take strings, right, and we make the string where we have hills, so one guy puts the string up. I think it says there 4 amos, so that's why he changes to 5 amos, because it can't be 50. So he says if you have hills and you have to go up a hill, so one guy holds a string opposite his nose and the other guy holds a string opposite his toes, and that's why you're mekader. So he changes to 5 because he says it can't be 50. Anyway, Rabbi Zir B'Shem Rabbi Chizdai said, Ein mekadrin, we don't measure as the crow flies, but rather actual level. We don't measure actually mekadrin, which would actually eliminate the slopes. Rather, we measure the distance on the ground. By Rifa Segla, we understand that because we want to measure which is the closest city, right? And then we have to take into account literally closest. But by Arei Levim, it's a little bit of a chiddush that we don't measure. So we have we don't absorb the slopes. But that's what he's saying. Nichos, it says, when that makes sense, command them are Elef Amo Migrash, Valpaim Amon. I want to change this. Nobody else changes it, but I think it has to be changed. That the two phrases here have to be transposed. Command them are Elef Amo Migrash, Valpaim Amo Sodas Ukramim. If you say 1,000 amos, 1,000 amos Migrash and 1,000 amos Sodas Ukramim, so I could say, here we say Ein Mekadrin. But by Tchum Shabbos we do, because Tchum Shabbos is a classic place where we eliminate the slopes by doing this, this thing. Baran Kamandamar Elef Amma Migrash, and that's according to Mandam in our Mishnah that the 2,000 amos in the pasuk is going to do Tchum Shabbos. Baran Kamandamar Elef Amma Migrash Valpaim Amma Tchum Shabbos, but according to Mandam in our Mishnah Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Akiva. Sorry, according to Rabbi Akiva said that it's 2,000 amos Migrash and 1,000 amos Tchum Shabbos. So Tchum Shabbos learns out from Ari Levim. So if you learn out the 2,000 amos Ari Levim, how can you reconcile and say yes, but vis-a-vis Ari Levim and Mekadrin, vis-a-vis Tchum Shabbos Mekadrin? It's not consistent. If Ari Levim is distinct in of itself, that the 1,000 amos was Migrash and the second 1,000 amos was Sodas Ukramim, has nothing to do with Tchum Shabbos, so you could say, well, here ain't Mekadrin and there Mekadrin. But if you're going to say that here it is talking about Tchum Shabbos, so you can't say by one Mekadrin and by one not, because they're both the same thing. Okay? So it's period. That's actually more continuous. It says, Li'ikrein Mekadrin. By the Ori Levim, you're not Mekadrin, fail Mekadrin. And for Shabbos, you are Mekadrin. You're learning out Shabbos from Levim. So how can you possibly say that one is one way and the other is the other way? It makes no sense. Period. New issue, not irrelevant here, but just slept along. I know you wouldn't bury anybody within the cities of Levim. It says, not just in the cities, in the Tchum Shabbos surrounding, the 2,000 amos surrounding. The fields, Yula Behemta, the yard should be the Behemta, says for animals, or Chusham and their possessions, and all of their animals. All of their sustenance, livelihood. It's given for their animals and their sustenance. It's not given for burial purposes. Okay? Bobayom. The other thing is Bobayom. Bobayom Dersh Kiva Darshant. Garata to the under paradise. Ozi Asher Moshe of Nei Yisrael Sashira Zos Lashem. Moshe of Nei Yisrael sang this song Akash Baruch Hu. Bayom Leimor, they said Sheitam Lo Mai Leimor. What does it say? Leimor. Leimor normally says means Moshe was told to tell it to somebody else. But what does Leimor mean here? Who are Bnei Yisrael telling the Shira to? El Shayu Yisrael Onim Achrav Shel Moshe. They read responsibly to Moshe Al Kol Davar V'Davar. Kikore Sahalel. Like you read Hala, right? Ashir Lashem ki go'ah. He would say, Ashir, he would say, Ashir Hashem ki go'ah, and they would say, Ashir Hashem ki go'ah. L'kach ne'amar le'mor. It was responsive reading, okay? Rabbi Yechemi Omer, ki korin Shema. No, you korin. Lo korin Hal. It's like Shema, not like Hal. What's the between Shema and Hal? Shema is not responsive, it's simultaneous. It's like the difference between right-wing shuls and left-wing shuls vis-a-vis l'chododi. In the young Israels, you sing l'chododi together, right? And our Gura type shuls, you do the Chazan does separately. So that's to say, that's the difference between Korin Sahalel and Korin Sashma. Okay? So that's, one opinion is that the Kriyas Yamsuf, they're Goodists, and the other is that Kriyas Yamsuf, they're Mizrachtics. Alright, in any event. Says the Gemara, L'kativ shu Makare Sahal Beis HaSefer, Ve'ein Oni Malchurava Kol Dover Dover. It's like a cotton reads the Hallel in Beis, I don't know why it says Beis HaSefer, it's Beis HaKnesses too. But in any event, I don't know, Beis HaSefer meant the same thing with them that it means by us. But in any event, when a cotton, so Gemara in Sukkot says, when a cotton reads the Hallel, so you respond after him. So you can't yotzib with him, right? So you respond after what he says. Moshe Amar Shira, Ve'enoni Moshira. Moshe said Ashira, and they said Ashira after him. Moshe Amar Ozi, Ve'enoni Mozi. They repeat it. Repeat after me. Rabbi Lezer Moshe Rabbi Yisrael Omer, L'goldo, no, not like that. They didn't repeat the whole phrase, and this really we didn't mention our mission of the Shita. Lezer Moshe Rabbi Yisrael Omer, L'goldo Shu Makari Sal Beis HaKnesses. Ve'enoni Machrav Dover Rishon. It's like when a Gadol reads Hal and Shul, and they answer the first thing. We don't have this meaning anymore, of course, but it used to be, he would say, B'tzei Somi Mitzrayim, Beis HaKol Mi'am Loes, and the call would answer, B'tzei Somi Mitzrayim. Vaysu L'Kodsho Yisrael Mam Shlosov, and they would say, B'tzei Somi Mitzrayim. After each and every phrase the Chazan would say, they would say the chorus, which is the first phrase in the parak, okay? So too, that's what they did by Kriyas Yamsuf, according to him, right? Moshe Omer Ashira, Ve'ein Onim Ashira, right? So far, so good. So Moshe Omer Ozi, Ve'ein Onim Ashira, right? And everything Moshe Omer said, they would say Ashir Lashem Ki Go. They would sing the refrain, okay? Rabbi Yisrael Omer B'Shah Shayu Avoseinu Abayam, when our forefathers in Yamsuf, Hayamuto Ola Birka Shel Imo, a young child would be on his mother's lap, and a child would be nursing from his mother's breast. Once he saw the divine presence, the young child would lift up his head from his mother's lap. And the child would remove his mouth from his mother's nipple. And it seems like that was part of either the miracle of their perception or the miracle of their singing. They would also open their mouths b'shira, b'shevach, v'ram, and they said zek keli v'amveyo. Me'er Omer, it's also in Bavli, afilu b'borim, the beginning of Ksuvas it is. Me'er Omer, afilu b'borim b'meimei moseim. Even the fetuses in their mother's wombs, they said shiur. Shneimar, b'makelus baruch Elokim, in the choirs, bless God, and Hashem, mimakor Yisrael, from the source of Israel, meaning from the womb. When our forefathers came up from Yamsuf, they saw the corpses of the sinning people, who made them work hard labor with difficult work, and they were all dead corpses, cast on the seashore. They wanted to say so. The divine spirit in order to guide their soul. And even the smallest one of Am Yisrael would say shiur like Moshe Rabbeinu, which is really what we had in the Mishnah, Kikreines Hashma. They all said the shiur together. It wasn't that Moshe had to lead them. They all had that Hashras Hashchina. Although the Chsiv, it's that which it says, and remember the days of your Moshe, Moshe with him, where is he who brought them out of the sea? And then it says Esroet Sono, with the shepherd of his flock. And Esroet Son ain't Ksiv Kan El Esroet Sono is an extra vav. So what's the extra vav? So it tells us that Melamed Shasa Kulam Roim. They were not just Moshe Rabbeinu. The Vav is like in a ribui. It's telling us that they were all at that point like Moshe Rabbeinu, and they all participated in the same song together. Matam Mulomer Lamor. That's the case of what you need the Lamor for. If it's responsive reading, I understand why you need the Lamor. Because Moshe says something, they say something. They say Lamor, so what is Lamor? It's Matam Mulomer Lamor. In that case, they're all doing it together. Lamor Ladoros should be said for all generations. So it's like if Lanetzach.
Don't you learn that from Oz, your shiur?
That's what we learn from Chias HaMesim. But Lema would be for us to say, for us to say davening, right? Okay? Actually, the Korban also brings another shot. The first shot I just gave is a Korban Moshe and the Korban. The first shot, the same way he says is that from here we learn out the Chiv to say Hallel every time a nace happens to Am Yisrael. Yes? Yeah.
Actually, what I was going to mention, there is the shiur of I don't remember who says that there's a chiv d'oraisa to say Hallel on Purim, on Hanukkah, on any miracle that happens with Jewish people. It's a chiv d'oraisa of Hallel.
Yeah, it's Mashiach, the Gemara in Pesachim, and this Gemara over here.
Yeah, so that's what it draws upon. So in other words, the idea of carrying it a step further is one could arguably say...
Are you talking about the Tshuva on Yom HaAtzmaut, the specific Tshuva?
No, this is...
Because there's that call, that's the famous Kol Mevaser. Rabbi Meshulam Rota, he wrote the Tshuva about how Yom HaAtzmaut. Unfortunately, he was a Hungarian.
This guy was Hungarian. What's his name? Maybe it was a Svasemis.
Hungarian? Svasemis was Hungarian. How could you say that about Svasemis?
It was Gier.
Gier's Poland.
Yeah, it's Polish.
Yeah.
I'll track down the name tomorrow.
Okay. Shalom Rata was a very big Talmid Chacham, despite the fact he was Hungarian. Yeah, it was okay. It's not Chas v'Shalom, so it's tough to say. All right. It says more. Rabbi Shem Rabbi Yosef China says, Kadem Psoka. Chassam Sofer. Oh, okay, fine. He was a holy man. Kadem Psoka. Like this Malame Tinokos. Psoka is somebody who says over Psukim, right? And that's like a little a Malame. So when he wants the kids to say something, he says, Shira, to get the kids to answer, Hashem ki go. So Moshe, that's how Moshe led them. Moshe Mer Shira, Ve'oni Machav, Shira Hashem ki go, Susvarach Varam Avayom. So he just had to start them off. And immediately they all went together. Moshe Mer Ozi V'Zimras, Ve'oni Machav, Ozi V'Zimras Kav, Ahili Shua, etc. Okay? So he just started them off and everything, and they continued on. Because of the Ruach HaKodesh, they continued. See if it says, before pros, here it is more explicit. Before pros be Israel, when there are disturbances in Klal Yisrael, be Snadev when the nation volunteers. Isnadu Roshei volunteer the heads of the congregation. What does it mean? Volunteer, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu does you miracles, you are Mishira. You have to say Shira. Okay, so that's what the front post is so Sadev Roshei Am, the rest of the pasuk, which it doesn't be down here, which is critical actually. You should have said it being Sadev Roshei Am, Sadev Baruch Hu Hashem. Okay? Says the answer of the pasuk, Baruch Hashem. So here we learn when there are disturbances and they're served and they're saved, so then everybody has to volunteer to say Shira to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is Makor for saying Hallel and Hat Solo. Now, the Gilin of Chaim Sharter, so switch around the Gemara here. So let me go down 3 lines and then come back. Hey, Sivun, they asked the question, how regulus Mordechai Esther? Why did they say Hallel for him? So it says, Shani Yisho you b'chutzlaretz. It's different because they're in chutzlaretz. Vista boy and Leimar, someone doesn't want to say Mordechai Esther misoneim nigal, they were saved from their enemies, lo yigol min malchus, but they weren't redeemed from being in chutzlaretz, from being a non-independent. So in any event, so this is also in the Bavli in Megillah, and we also have the Yerushalmi Megillah as well. Now, going back, hey, see when our regulus Mitzrayim, so that's Kulus Mitzrayim, but when we left Mitzrayim, we say Shir even though it's a nation of Chutz La'aretz. Right? How can we say Shir and left Mitzrayim? No. Shani Yid, Shi Tchilas Kulos, and that's because they hadn't yet entered Eretz Yisrael. So before they entered Eretz Yisrael, at the beginning of Gula, this initial Gula, they could say shiur on this. Once they entered Eretz Yisrael, so really the Gemara Megillah, then you can't say Hallel anymore, Nation B'chutz. Okay? Obviously, the other answers there, and the Gemara Megillah says, Kriyas Hallel, substitutes for Mikra Megillah, for Kriyas Megillah, substitutes for Kriyas Hallel, but this is one of the answers that you don't give, say Hallel, Nation B'chutz.
And it was the beginning of the Gula toward Eretz Yisrael.
Yeah, well, one could say that's what it means by Chilos Glosan as well. Bobby of the Shabbat Ben Hurkanos, that there Rishon Ben Hurkanos Darshan, Shlo Avat Eov Esamokom Elam Yavo. Eov served that Kodesh Baruch Hu out of love. Shneimar Henik Delani, if he kills me, Lo Yachel, I still yearn to him. There's my Dayan Davar Shakol. Man, it still seems to be in balance because the Pasuk says Henik Delani Lo Yachel Lo Ani Mitzapeh. When it says lo, is that lo with avav? Or any mitzapeh, or is it lo? Or is it lo with an aleph? Right? That I'm not looking forward to, right? So Tam Lomer, adegva, until death, till I expire, lo asir tu masimi menu. I will not leave my wholeness from a Kodesh Baruch Hu, not move from a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Limei teaches shemavos or Eov did out of love of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Tani b'sher reida, chai kel. Now this is all Darshus Adiyah, much more than the Bavli has in Babasra. Taishem Rabbi Yehuda, Chai Kel Hisir Mishpati, by the life of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, he removed my judgment, V'shakai Amen Avshein HaKodesh Baruch Hu caused me to be bitter. From his saying Chai Kel, interesting perspectives the Gemara has here. Shein Adam Noider B'chayev Shamelech Elikein Orvo. Interesting thing, because we see Yosef took a shvua, Chai Paro, even though he hated Paro's guts. But here it says you don't take a shvua by a king unless you love the king. Okay, so that's what it's saying. If Eov took a shvua in the name of Kodesh Baruch Hu, must be love of Kodesh Baruch Hu. Strange, but that's what it says here. Bishum Rav Yasin Amru, how we know that it was he loved the Kodesh Baruch Hu? Because it says, Kamhu li Yeshua, Hashem is his salvation, Kilol Fanav Chanetio, because he does not tolerate flatterers. Because okay, the king going off of you for a moment. One pasuk says, "Asemi avo, asemi yiro." I say, "Baptist Hashem l'kecho." One says, "Love HaKodesh Baruch Hu." Kos v'echorama. One says, "Kodesh Baruch Hu Hashem l'kecho tira v'sot avod." Fear God and worship Him. Also, asemi avo, asemi yiro. Yeah, very famous Gemara. I think it's in the Bible somewhere, so I don't remember where. Worship Hashem out of love and worship Hashem out of fear. Now, the Korbanei Pnei Moshe from Machlokas say what kind of fear. The Korbanei says Yer Soinish, to fear hell because it's hot and it burns, right? Pnei Moshe says it's Yer Saromamus, the awe of the majesty of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, I'm not sure exactly which one it's referring to. Probably Elu both. It's probably referring to both. But it's a famous Gemara. I should have looked up if there's a parallel in the Bavli, but I didn't see anything offhand. Do out of love. Shimbasali snow. If you come to hate, dashato. If you know that you love, eino hev soneh. Right? It's like so somebody has a falling out, let's say, with their wife. So they feel temporarily they get very angry with their wife. They might even temporarily hate her, but eventually they come around to loving her again because that's the way marriage works. So too, if you love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so even if you have temporary falling out, you're not going to come to hate him, but rather you'll come back around again, so to speak. And so too, Asemi Yira, do out of fear, Shimbasa Levait, if you come to kick away the yoke, and Yorei Mevait, somebody who's afraid. If you're afraid of your wife, you're careful as to what you do for her as well. Okay, Shiva Prushime. Now this is also in the Bavli, but the Bavli and Yerushalmi have very different interpretations of this. It's Bavli and Sotah, and the Yerushalmi here in Sotah as well. Shiva Prushim and the Shiva Prushim. 7 people who are Prushim, who seem to be frum, but they're really hypocrites. Parush Shichmi, Parush Nikvi, Parush Kizi, Parush Menachya, Parush Eda Chavasi Vesera, Parush Yira, Parush Ava. Although Parush Yira, Parush Ava will be different. Now I'll give you the Yerushalmi shot and also tell you the Bavli shot. Now I think this is a little bit of Haskolish or Zach by me, but I think the Yerushalmi reflects perhaps more the issues with the Christians, right? Because in Bavel, when they interpret something like this, they don't have to deal. They're only over there for the Christian in Bavel, so they didn't have to deal with Christian sects. But I think in Eretz Yisrael, perhaps what it's about to say maybe reflects their battles with the Christians. Maybe, I don't know. Could be I'm totally off base. Anyway, Paran Shichmi. A Paran Shichmi is somebody, according to the Yerushalmi, Toin Mitzvah Se'al Kisvei. Shechem is a shoulder, right? So he carries his mitzvahs on his shoulder. He says, see how many mitzvahs I got? I'm a holy kind of guy, right? So that's what he says. The Bible has buried him. The Bible learns Shichmi, Lashon Shchem. And he's like Shchem. That in Shchem, when they remow themselves, that are bris milah, they didn't do lishma. They did it for their personal gain. So this guy, he does mitzvahs, but he doesn't do it l'shem shamayim. In other words, for Avas Hashem. He does it because he wants to make olam haba out of it. He wants to get reward, or Rashi says there for his own covet. He does it for his own honor. Okay? Parish nikfi. Akif, so he says, Akif on avid mitzvah. Do two pshatim here. Either can you lend me some money so I can do a mitzvah? Right? So he goes around borrowing money to do mitzvahs. He's borrowing money to go to a casino, but he claims he's borrowing money to do mitzvahs. Or the Pnei Moshe says, wait for me a few minutes, I have to go do a mitzvah. In the meantime, he doesn't necessarily go to do a mitzvah. But he makes as if he's going to do a mitzvah. The Bible is, again, a different shot here. The Bible says that it's somebody who's menakif es raglov. He always walks with humility and shuffles like. Avad chada, interesting. Avad chada chayva v'chada mitzvah. He does one avera and one mitzvah. And he balances one of the others. He says, well, I did one avera, I'll go and do a mitzvah and I'll balance them out and make my cheshbon work. So the Bavli is a different shot. The Bavli, in line with the previous Gemara, previous shot about the guy who stubs his toe, says somebody walks with his head down because he says he doesn't want to look at women. And then he walks into walls and he lets blood out. He starts bleeding from his forehead. So of course he really is looking at the women from the side, but he's pretending that he's not looking at the women. Okay? That's what it says. Parish Menachia. What's Menachia? He says he man disli whatever I have man menake of a mitzvah. I take away, I deduct in order to do a mitzvah. In other words, he says, all the money I have, I spend it all on doing mitzvahs. So a big thought, everything he spends on doing mitzvahs. The Bible here is a different shot as well. The Bible doesn't learn parish menachia, but parish meduchia. Meduchia means like something which is sloped, or literally like the mortar and pestle. It means that he always goes slumped over like this, looking as if he's very humble, always walking slumped over. Parish Eida Chavasi Vesena. What does that mean? I de chovsa of this, which avera have I done? The navi mitzvah kavasah. So again, like we said before, so I can do a mitzvah to counterbalance it. The Bible here also says differently. Bible says, what more do I have to do? In other words, I've done so much. What else should I do? I'm always doing mitzvahs. I've done so much, but tell me it's something else. I'll do something else. And of course, the liar, he hasn't done very much at all. Parish Yira is Ki'iyov. Fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like Eov had. Parish Avok is like Avraham Avinu. Now the Bavli does not learn that way. The Bavli learns Parish Yira is he does from Yira Sa'oinish. And Parish Ava does from Ava Schar. And the Bavli says that's Shalol Lishma. To worship God because you fear punishment or you love reward, that's Shalol Lishma. But B'tov Shalol Lishma B'al Lishma. So it's good anyway. But the Yerushalmi is learning that it's a much more directly good. That here, Yira means Yira like Eov, which Mistama, like the Pnei Moshe said, is Yiras HaRoimemus. And Avas, of course, Avas HaKashem, like Avraham Avinu. So it's not just B'tov Shalol Lishma B'al Lishma, but it's much more directly and powerfully Lishma. Avram, and this is a very famous Agarata, I don't know, actually it's not very famous, but Reb Tzadok brings it down a lot, so by me it's famous. Avram asa Yetzer Hara Tov. He made his Yetzer Hara good. In other words, he served Hashem even with his Yetzer Hara. His Yetzer Hara, of course, generally the Yetzer Hara is considered to be your emotional drives, Yetzer Tov, your intellectual restraint. Avram uses his emotion, his chasadim also l'shem shamayim, right? What pasuk teaches us this? the ganze Leib, l'shnei Yitzorim, Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Ra, nemel l'fanech, his entire heart was trustworthy before you. Rabbi Achar said, v'hif shirimo. He made a deal with the Yetzer Ra. In other words, he came to understanding with him. That we'll both serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu together. B'chol rosi mar bris. But David lo yochabo, but David was not able to use his Yetzer L'Shem Shemayim. He muffed up with Bathsheba. And therefore, for Agobel, afterwards he decided he has to kill it. Because he can't properly use his Yetzer Hara. His drives L'Shem Shemayim, they're ruinous for him, so he decided he has to kill his Yetzer Hara. My time of Pasuk teaches us this, Filibi chalal b'kirbi. My heart is dead within me. So actually, David HaMelech was not in the same Madrigal as Avraham Avinu. Avraham, the Mekubalim calls it between Iskafio and Ishapocha. Iskafio, David subdued his Yetzer Hara. He killed it after the Ma'aseh Bathsheba. Avraham uplifted his Yetzer Hara. He changed it. He sublimated it and used it in order to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's a higher Madrigal.
Isn't also the two bases in Levavcha?
Yeah, Levavcha, right. It's with both halves of the heart, Yetzer Hara, Yetzer Tov. That's right, the two bases, right. And here it's Matzasas Levavcha and Emavecha, two bases as well. Okay, but now this Agata is famous. Rabbi Akiva Mutin Kume Tunas Rufus Rosh Akiva was being judged, literally tortured to death, in front of Tunas Rufus, the evildoer. Asas Yom the Kriya Shema. It's a little bit different than the way we normally understand it. I think of the way, if I remember correctly from the Gemara in Brachos, he said Shema because he was expiring. But here it's not like that. Here came time to say Kriya Shema. It's time to daven. In the middle of their being miyasir, and came time to say Kriya Shema. So Shari Kari V'gochach. He started saying Shema and started smiling. Amar the Tunas Rufus is standing there, Saba. He said, old man. O Charashat, either you're a magician, or Mavai Pisunat, or you deny or kick away at the torture which you're suffering. He said, Tipach Ruche Deo Gavra. May the spirit of this man expire. I'm not a magician. It's not that I kick away the Yisur and I don't suffer them. Elokol Yomai, very famous. I used to craze the pasuk. I said my whole life I read this pasuk. I love that Hashem with all my heart. I love that Hashem with all my money. That's b'chol modecha. B'chol nafshi, with my soul, love abedikoli. I never check myself out. Ukadun the matasli b'chol nafshi. Now that I came to the stage of kol nafshi, v'asas anta the Kriya Shema, the time of Kriya Shema came, v'lo aflagis olei, and my soul did not rebel against it. Begin kach anakarei shema v'gachach. That's how I mean the Shema, and I'm smiling about it. The Chem Yamsuni Shishimish Rabbi Akiva is out of left field. It's also in the Bavli. The Chem Yamsuni Shishimish Rabbi Akiva Shimishtaim Shana. In the Bavli, I think it says Nechem Yamsuni was Rabbi Akiva's Rebbe, but here it says Nechem Yamsuni was Rabbi Akiva's Talmud. Okay, so he was learned by Rabbi Akiva Shimishtaim Shana. Hu Yomer, and he said Esin Gamin Ribuyin. Whenever it says Es or Gam in Torah, it's a ribu. It comes to include anything or something. So of course it says. Anachi v'rakin are muted. If it says ach or rak, it's a mute. It's an exclusion. Armalei, so he said to her, give us the mad dain dichsiv as Hashem elkech tirah. It's not clear who said to. But Nechem Yasuni said Akiva said Nechem Yasuni. What about Hashem elkech tirah? So it says in the Bavli that when Nechem Yasuni got to this, he was pirish. He said Kashem shekibati aschar ladrisha kacha kabaschar laprisha. Because I don't know what to darshan. What is there to fear besides HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So Amarlei, so whoever was talking to her, Akiva, I guess Nechem Yasuni said, Oso ves Torah osoi. It's interesting. The Bavli it says the Rabbis Tamid Chachomim. You should fear Hashem. You should fear Tamid Chachomim. But here it doesn't say fear Tamid Chachomim. It's fear the Torah. So Pnei Moshe says it's the same thing. I'm not sure if it's the same thing, but that's what he says. Okay, I'm never sure. Continue with the Yov. Mi Gala offer me'enecha, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Who will take the dirt off your eyes, Yochanan ben Zakkai? Shahisa derish kol yamecha, you dash your entire life, lo avad Eov samaka melim miyira. He only served Hashem from fear. Shamar ishtam v'yashar. He was a whole man, a straight man. V'yirei Elokim, feared God v'sar mirah, and deviated from evil. Yeshua tamidecha. Yeshua, your Talmud of your Talmud. Limed shamiavo. So he thought that he did it out of love. Now the next Gemara is in the Bavli also in Babasa, but here it's many more opinions. Amos Hoya Eov. When did Eov live? Hashem Elok Hashem Bar Kapar said, "We may have Ram Avinoya." There's Avram. Adol Desiv, it says about Eov, Ishaya be'eretz Utz. Eov Shmo, person in the land of Oz. Uksiv, it says by Nachor that he had a kid, it's Utz Bechoro. So it must be Eov lived in the land of Utz, which is named after Utz, the Bechor of Nachor. So he lived at that time. Rabbi Abba Amar B'Yemei Avinu Yaakov Hayos, the days of Yaakov Avinu. V'Dino Eiso Ishto, and his wife is Dina. Hodol L'Siv, it says that Eov said to his wife, "Kedaber achas nevos tedaber." You're talking like a low woman. Uksiv, it says, "My Dina kinavola asar b'Yisrael." That was a repugnant, low thing in Am Yisrael. So Dina was his wife. Rabbi Levi Amar Rabbi Meir Shvatim Hayos, in the days of Shvatim. Hodol L'Siv, it says about the Shvatim. Eov says about the Shvatim. Asher Chacham Yagidu, Reuven and Yudo sinned. They told, and they did not deny from their fathers the sins they did tshuva. Rabbi Yosef Chlafta Omer B'Ridas Mitzrayim Haya. He was at the time when they went down to Egypt. Uba Eliyasav Mason, when they came up, he died. Rashi, I think, brings us down in Parsha Shlach, when it says that when they sent them Ravli, then Ravli reported back that Eov died. Sar Tzilam Me'alem, Eov, who was protecting the Canaanim with his chus, he died. And why he died then? So Mashal Roeh, or why did he get these Yisurim then? Mashal Roeh, it's like a Roeh, Shabazev, a shepherd who's confronted with a wolf. That comes, and wants to take one of the sheep. Masa Wedu, Hemi Tayash Echlonegdo, he puts a goat opposite the sheep. So, or opposite the wolf. So according to the Korban Eder, he learns a very shver. Korban Eder says the goat will fight the wolf. So too, Eov fought Yisurim, and that was the schus for Am Yisrael. And he learns like he was Jewish. But the Pashut Pshat is not like that. The Pashut Pshat is like the Bnei Moshe, who says that when the wolf comes, he wants a korban, right? So instead of giving him Am Yisrael to the Satan, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Eov to the Satan as a korban. And that way he helped out Am Yisrael. And that's what it sounds like for the next pasuk, because it says, Yazgireni kel el avil. Hashem gave me over to the bad one. By day Rishoim Yarteni, and through the Rishoim, he deflected, right? Deflected the Satan through me, who am a Rasha, he deflected the Satan. So the rest of Rashi brings down Chumash, but in Parshas Balak it says, Ki yarata derech l'negdi. I think Rashi says that word yarat doesn't appear anywhere else in Tanakh. But here it does. It appears here in Eov, which means deflect. So he served like the korban to deflect the Satan. Tanya Rabbi Shmuel says, Eov mi'abdi paroya migdoli pamaishos, from the servants of Paro, from the great men of his retinue. You know, there's a medrash that says that Eov, Bilam, and Yisro, all the advisors of Paro, right? And Eov was silent. Yisro said to let them go, and Bilam said to subjugate them more. So that's all that's like this. See it says, "Hayarayist by Hashem." Those who fear God, they kept their cattle away from the field during the hail. Uksiv, it says, "By Eov each time Yashar Elokim v'Sar Meira." So Yori. Rabbi Yosef Yidam Rabbi Meishvot Shoftim. It was the days of the judges. See it says, Eov says, "Heina tem kulchem chazisem." You all seen. The Lama said, "Hevel tebol." Why will you do empty things? And it says, Chazal say in a marriage, it's not a pasuk, but Chazal say that the aim of the Torah of Shoftim is the Dor Shel Hevel, because such a distorted and empty generation. Anyway, and Eov says here, Chazisem Maisa Doiri. Look at what my generation does. These Shoftim, Shunotli Maisa Begranos, the Levium would go down to the, or even the Shoftim, I guess, will go down to the granaries to take their mice and wouldn't even wait till it was given to them. Haft esnan, I'll call Gronos Dargon, like the pasuk says, else later in history of Ben Hoshea, you love to get presents on all the granaries. Shmuel Bar Nachman B'Shir Rabbi Yona's son said, "B'Yimei Malchus Shvoya." It was in the days of Malchus Shvoya, the time of Shlomo. Shneimar says, "The person Yiyov Vatipo Shvoya Tikochem." Shvoya fell upon his kids and took them. And also B'Yimei Kastim, it was the days of Kastim. Shneimar Kastim Somu Shlosha Roshim, also pasuk in Eov. So it's about Kastim. Shemem Korcham B'Yimei Achashverosh Shoya. Shneimar says in the Bible too. Shneimar Yivakshul Melech Naros B'Slos Tovos Maret. Look for good-looking girls. Uksim says, "Lonim tzadashim yavos kimnos Eov." They're no better looking girls than Eov's daughters. Okay, Rabbi Shimon Levi Omer me'oila golo hayu. He was when the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. Yocham Omer me'oila golo v'Yisrael hayu. and he was a Jew. Lefum Kain, therefore, Rabbi Yochanan lo menu hilchos avel. You learn from hilchos avelus. For example, it says, Vayokam Iyov vayikras mi'ilo. Yov got up and ripped his clothes. And Paz Shemiel says, Mikanch avel tzarech likra me'umad. I don't remember this from the Bavli at all. But I think we do learn out this halacha, that you have to do kriya standing up. You do kriya standing up, they do it by the kever, usually. So in any event, so this is, I think by the kever.
In the funeral.
In the funeral we do it? Not by the kever? It's not after?
Before the Leviathan.
For the Leviathan. Does it depend if it's going to Eretz Yisrael or not? No? It's in the funeral home? I thought it was by the kever. Alright, could be I'm wrong. So, anyway, we do it standing up. You know what? This is the next. It's already late, so we'll stop here. We still have some interesting stuff coming up, but it's late, and we did too long. Okay.